That's the trap I fell into.
You fell for one of the classic blunders.
But of course, I'm not involved in a land war in Asia, so I'm doing pretty good on that count.
Yet. Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 51.
Everyone has things they are passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on.
I feel more prepared than I usually do.
Good. I know, I even listened back on previous episodes.
I have notes with all my things that I want to say, and I think I have a lot that I can go on. But you said that you had something that you'd like to talk about first.
So my wife asked me, she's like, remember that Nintendo game? Well, actually, I think she said, remember that Mario game where it went da-da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, oh, yeah. She's like, can't we play that game? And I was like, yeah, we could if we get the Nintendo online thingy, because that gives you the original games.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, we can do the free trial of that. So we signed up, and yep, sure enough, she had a good time playing it, and my kids played it a little bit. So that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was looking through it, and I was like, oh, you can play N64 games now.
The N64 games are actually on their super premium service.
I saw that. That was what kicked me. I was like, oh, good, N64 games. Oh, let me try it. Oh, you have to sign up for the next level. Oh.
Yeah. And that next level is a significant jump in money.
Well, okay, so here's the question I have for you, actually. I didn't understand this because my account is in Japan. It was all in Japanese, and I probably should have just gone over to America and read the American one, but I didn't spend this much time because I figured I could ask you and you'll know right away. It was twice as much, but is it twice as much for the year or twice as much on top of the year you're paying? Because it was 7,500 yen for the premium and 3,300 yen for the year, something like that. Is the year twice as much with premium, or is it am I paying for the year and then paying for premium?
So if you do the premium thing, you're not paying the $20 for, I say $20 because that's the American price. So you're not paying $20 plus the $49.99 for America.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Mm-hmm.
You are instead just paying $49.99 for the whole bundle.
For the whole bundle?
Yep.
So do I want to pay? I looked at the games they had for N64,
mm-hmm.
and really the only game I care about is Mario Kart 64.
What about Mario 64?
Well, Mario 64 is good. I played it a little bit. We rented that game on our 64 back when we originally got our 64. And it's okay. I never get too far in the levels. I was not sold on it. They don't have the Tetris that I like, which is called the all-new Tetris or something like that. And they don't have GoldenEye. And they don't have the other games that I actually have cartridges for, which is 1080 snowboarding.
They do have Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, though.
Yeah, I did see that. You're right. That is good. Oh, the Animal Crossing bonus features, too.
Yeah. I mean, do you play Animal Crossing?
No. Star Fox is actually pretty good. I remember playing that.
So here's the deal. For me, I do not have the expansion pass for this. I have the regular version, and the main feature of the regular version that I pay for, honestly, is cloud save backups.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have gotten overly cautious about my save files in the past few decades. And so I always love to have all my save files backed up to the cloud. So that's why, regardless of everything, unless they really made it a untenable price for me, I have both through PlayStation and through Switch the memberships that allow me to do cloud backups on their servers.
Mm-hmm. And so you'd pay the full year at a time?
I pay a full year at a time. Just because I know at the end of the day, I'm going to keep subscribing.
Mm-hmm.
The games for the expansion pass, the ones that would bring me in would be Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Mario Kart is good, but it's best with other people.
Yeah.
Then also Sega Genesis games are also offered for the expansion pass.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which there are a couple of games in here that I was like, oh, I remember playing that. But I know that if I went back and played it now, I'd play it for 5 minutes and then be done.
Nothing there interests me. Sonic 2, maybe. But yeah, that would be the only one that I would play for 5 minutes and be done, I think.
Sonic 2, Shining Force, and Phantasy Star are pretty much the main ones I think of. Oh, maybe Castlevania, yeah.
They have, I didn't see this. They have Mario Golf. It's not in the picture. It's only in the words. I actually have a cartridge of that too.
Really? I'm not seeing it anywhere in the...
Yeah, oh, okay, it's coming soon. It's not available yet. Banjo and Kazooie. We did rent that game once or twice. That was kind of fun. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
And these are all coming soon?
These are all coming soon.
Yeah. I think for me, it would be more attractive if I had a few more games that I wanted. But right now, I would be doing this for Legend of Zelda and Mario 64.
Is it worth me doing this than actually plugging in my 64 to my TV? Actually, I looked on Amazon. I could get N64 adapters, so I could even use my N64 controllers on my Switch, wired like an animal.
Like an animal. Wow.
But better than paying $70 per controller for the wireless version that Nintendo wants to sell you right now.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Per controller, where I can get 2 USB adapters that lets me hook up 4 controllers. So, yeah, that's a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm. All in all, my personal feeling is, I don't know. I think it really depends on how much the time and effort to hook up your N64 is worth to you.
Probably not that much money, because, really the only reason it's not hooked up to my TV is because I haven't bought the right adapter for it. But I'm assuming the right adapter would be what, like $10, maybe $20 at the worst?
Yeah, well, it will be higher visual quality if you use the Switch, yeah. I assume. I assume that
too. They had a screenshot down here on this one. Yeah, it's going to be soft, even on the screenshot they have here.
Yeah.
Wow, with this, you can play online with multiplayers around the world. There you go. So you can get it, and I can play Mario Kart 64 against you.
And you could win.
I don't know if I'm as good as I used to be. I used to be pretty good at it, but I don't think I'm as good as I used to be.
I can tell you right now, I assume that the moment anybody challenges me in a racing game, they can usually just count on them winning.
But maybe I can have another tournament with my brother.
You could.
My brother was pretty good too. It would take a lot of concentration to beat him, and occasionally I would. Not always, but I would occasionally.
I usually was the last in the pack for just about every racing game.
I don't think it's worth it, but it is interesting to see. I should just buy the adapter for my TV, because I don't need Animal Crossing, and I don't need the Sega games.
I do play Animal Crossing on occasion, but my problem with this DLC being included in this expansion, what happens when you stop subscribing to this?
Exactly. Although they do sell the DLC separately. You can buy that separate.
And I'm going to tell you right now that if I ever decided to get that DLC, I would buy it separately, even if I was, at that time, subscribed to this thing. Because I wouldn't want to have built something up and then suddenly have it taken away from me. That just, not really what I would want to do.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was wrong. The N64 controllers, the wireless ones they sell now, are $50 each. But they also include special buttons. They have a Bluetooth sync button, a home button, a screenshot button, and a ZR button.
So that you can play on your N64 controller with regular Switch games even?
I think so.
I'm going to be honest, I can't even imagine trying to go back to an N64 controller now.
You see, as you know, it is seriously a derided controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's what I grew up with, so it feels natural to me. I understand it's one of the worst controllers ever, but it's what I grew up with, so I didn't know any different, and I didn't know it was bad when I was using it, so it just felt normal to me.
Oh, I used it. I used it a lot. I remember playing through all of Ocarina of Time, getting through using that 64 controller. I just, It
was built for people with 3 hands.
It was either built for people with 3 hands or built with shifting the right hand between the D-pad and the joystick constantly.
Well, most games would do one or the other.
Yeah.
But still, it's funny now looking back on it. But it is, to me, that feels like home. I look at my daughters and they're going to grow up thinking that this cramped half controller from the Switch is the normal thing, which is not good either.
No, that's why you get one of those Pro controllers.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to spend that much money also because those are very expensive. Well, I mean, they're not expensive. They're just expensive for somebody who doesn't play their Switch that often. So they're expensive to me. I understand that to many other people, they're probably not.
Yeah, I definitely have one.
Well, what I was looking at getting was at some point getting a Bluetooth controller that could work for the Switch and my Apple computer, right? Or even my Apple TV, now that I have Apple Arcade. And there are some out there, but I just, again, haven't purchased that because then it would have at least more use.
And you can definitely find cheaper ones if you're willing to be an animal.
Yeah. Well, to me, because it would work on the Apple TV, because my daughters do actually play Apple Arcade games. I've been pushing Apple Arcade games to them because they don't have ads. They're not all great games, but they don't have ads.
I was going to say, because you already, have a subscription to them all.
Yeah, that too. I mean, they're free. You can download them. They don't have ads. All the stuff comes. There's no in-app purchases. There's a lot of good reasons. And they're decent. They're maybe not great, but they're at least decent. So
it's either that or, you become like me and spend amount of money on games every month.
All right. Should we do our picks for 2021, Ryan?
2021 has been... It's been a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's about how I'm feeling right now. But, the year's done, and so I think it's good to look back and reminisce, because despite everything, some good things happened, I think.
We had 19 episodes. I think we were hoping to get to 25 of episodes recorded within 2021. We did pretty good still. Things got in the way a little bit too, but, we did all right. Maybe we'll shoot for 25 again next year, but we'll have to see. Let's shoot for 20 and then be nicely surprised when we break 20. 22.
Because there are, how many weeks in a year again?
26.
26, yeah.
Oh, sorry, 52.
52, sorry. So 26.
26 was the number you were looking
for.
Thank you. The number you're looking for is 26. 52 weeks in a year.
This time of the night, I don't do maths, if you haven't realized. I think 22, though, is a good number because then we have our buffers.
So let's get to some topics. We pretty much have the same kind of topics as last year. We have games played, movies watched at the theater or otherwise, TV shows, TV series, event, music, favorite new thing, favorite drink, Kit Kat from the show, favorite main media book from the show, and favorite main media visual from the show. We made a distinction there this year, different from last time.
Because at the end of last year, we said some of the things that were the most impactful were books, and so we tried to up our book intake.
You're right. We did talk about that.
And so I thought if we're going to up our book intake, let's separate those out to what was our favorite book and what was our favorite visual media. So yes, our categories are basically the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Favorite games, favorite movies, TV shows, events, music, new things, drink, Kit Kat, book, and visual media from the show.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's your favorite game played? I got to tell you, Ryan, I got nothing for this one.
You got nothing? Okay.
No, I didn't play any games significantly. Although I guess I played Super Mario last week, but still, I don't think I'm going to count that.
I might have mentioned this a few times, but I got a PS5.
Mm-hmm. We did discuss it. It was quite the drama.
Yeah, there was a bit of drama surrounding it. And so I thought about that, and I thought about games that I've played this year, and I'm going to mention two games that I really enjoyed playing this year that I don't think I've mentioned playing them at all on the show, and I would say that these are kind of tied for my favorite games that I played this year.
Okay.
So Demon Souls is the first one. It is of the same series as the Dark Souls series, but they had a remake for the PS5, made it all pretty and things. It is the originator of a very difficult style of game that is just wonderful to play because it is difficult, but it is also extremely satisfying when you figure out and learn what you need to do to get something done. It's played like a normal medieval fantasy type game. It has all of the trappings of that, but all of the enemies are very vicious. And the only way to win is to learn their attacks, to learn their timing, to learn where they are, to learn how they are going to attack, and succeed that way. And so I really enjoy those games, and there's that. And the other game that I want to talk about, I've talked about this series, but I don't think I've talked about this specific game, and that is Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yakuza Like a Dragon is technically also called Yakuza 7. And it is actually a new character rather than the same characters that they've done before. And whereas the previous games had been more of brawling, fighting type games where you would wander the streets and somebody would say, hey, this guy, we don't like him, so we're going to beat him up. And then you would go into a kind of a fighting arena sort of thing. In this game, the main character, while he is a member of the Yakuza, he is also a super big nerd. By that I mean, whenever he gets into a fight, he imagines himself to be in Dragon Quest. And so it turns all of the battles into turn-based battles, sort of like Dragon Quest parodies. So he ends up getting a team together at some point where he has other characters who are assisting him, and they cast magic, and really, but in reality, it's things like they take a swig of booze and they blow on a lighter so that it casts fire. So it's a bunch of really ridiculous things. Like all the other Yakuza games, it's very tongue-in-cheek. In fact, there is one point where you end up in a side quest where you fight against a giant Roomba. So in a lot of RPGs, there is summon magic where you can call on a large monster or a deity to help you in battle. Well, in this one, you can use your phone to call a friend and have them show up and fight the battle for you, including things like summoning your best friend who is a crawfish. So, there's a bunch of really silly things in this game, but it also has a very deep story that is really moving, actually. Both of these games are just excellent games, and I loved playing them, and they were the favorite games that I played this year.
Cool.
Also, I felt like I couldn't mention Final Fantasy VII Remake again.
Well, you could.
Also, I played that last year, so, I can't really just bring it up again.
And, I figured I couldn't count me organizing my pictures with the Synology Photos app as a game.
Yeah, I'm just really glad that it wasn't Disco Zoo again.
It is probably the game I played the most this year, Disco Zoo. But yeah, I didn't play it enough to call it a game of the year again, I don't think so.
I keep saying I need to get you onto other games, but you just seem to not have this thing called time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've definitely been enjoying organizing photos in that time frame as opposed to playing games in that time frame. So, oh well.
Makes sense.
Alrighty. Movies at the theater or watched?
Yeah, since I just went on a whole spiel, I think it's only right that you go first.
Well, I didn't visit the theater this year at all, but I did scroll through my Netflix history and my Amazon history and the movies I recorded off cable, then discovered that you can't look up your Disney Plus history and was like, why not? Why can't you look up your Disney Plus history? But apparently you can't. And was surprised to find that I watched a lot of TV shows this year and not a lot of movies. There were still some that I watched, but I think the one that I liked the best is called Free Guy. And I watched it on Disney Plus in Japan. And Free Guy is an interesting game. I think I mentioned this to you, right?
Yeah, you've mentioned it to me. I haven't gotten around to watching it, though.
Yeah, I think you should watch it. It's about an NPC, a non-player character, who gains sentience. So it's quite fun, actually. I enjoyed it a lot. I think what's interesting about the movie is that it had a hero vibe in such a way that you wouldn't necessarily expect from Ryan Reynolds. It's not the... What's his character on Marvel?
Deadpool?
Deadpool, yes. It's not the Deadpool hero. It is a more sane hero.
Whoa. Deadpool's sane? Okay, no, I can't even say that as a joke.
No, he's not really sane. He's kind of crazy. But anyway.
But he's my kind of crazy.
Yeah, I watched the first one and then decided not to watch the second Deadpool.
Gotcha.
He was a little bit too brutal. Yeah. Brutal, I think, is the thing that bothered me the most. Anyway,
Gotcha.
I thought he was funny, just brutal. So anyway, Free Guy, I think, has more of the funny, especially as he's realizing that he's an NPC, right? And what does that mean for his world, and what can he change about his world? And there's a whole other thing going on in the back with Taika Waititi, which is pretty funny. Yep, I liked Free Guy. And I didn't get to go to a theater, so I didn't get to see anything else or listen to anything that was released in the theater. Or I had to wait till it came out on Disney+. The second place might be Luca, and we talked about on a previous episode also. I thought Luca was very excellent Pixar film that probably got overlooked by a lot of people because of the pandemic. But I thought Luca was an excellent Pixar film. It's a nice coming-of-age story about a boy who's learning how to fit in. He's a fish out of water, literally.
Yeah, I've seen previews for it. I just haven't gotten around to watching that one either.
I did watch a lot of kids' films, but I think in some ways the kids' films were better in many ways. Luca is one of them that definitely stood out. So,
yeah, I was thinking about all the films that I watched this year, and I've seen a couple of films in the theater this year. I think most of them were like Marvel movies, or I watched the James Bond movie. Oh, I saw Cruella. But I think that for me, the one that stood out the most was actually Dune.
yeah, I was wondering if that's what you were going to pick.
I thought it was a faithful interpretation of the book. I thought it was very beautifully done. Altogether, really well done. I am remaining hopeful for how they are going to finish out the story for part 2. But all in all, I was very happy with it. So for me, I say that of the movies that I saw this year in theater, I think it's got to be Dune.
I'll have to see it.
You will.
All right. Favorite TV show series? Actually, I wrote down a lot here.
I did not because I ended up not watching a lot of TV.
I watch TV, and actually, I'm glad I scrolled through all my Amazon history because there was a show I watched on Amazon that I completely forgot about, and it's one of my second picks is Lower Decks. Actually, at first I thought, after I scrolled through my Netflix history, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't watch any Star Trek this year, any brand new Star Trek, because season 3 ended in Japan just as 2021 started, pretty much. I was thinking, oh, I didn't watch any new Star Trek. And the new season of Discovery hasn't come out in Japan because of silly things that CBS is doing.
Licensing.
Yeah, oh, goodness. So I'm going to have to wait till 2022, I guess, because CBS paid Netflix to not show it overseas. Wow, anyway, so I will watch it later, I guess, since I'm not willing to go through the hassle of a VPN. So Lower Decks, I watched that. That's definitely a second choice. Oh, and I was also surprised to realize that I watched Mandalorian in 2021. That was a good season 2.
Oh, yeah, that was still this year.
I know. Well, I didn't actually remember that until I was listening back to some of our episodes and realized that I was talking about it. Because again, no history in Disney Plus. Too bad.
There are a couple of times where I'm like, what did I watch this year? I know I watched things.
I know. Early in the year, too, I was thinking I should take notes on what I watched. Because if we're not going to bring it up in the show, I should take notes that it was a favorite. But I think I might be stealing one of yours if I say one of my second choices is Loki also, won't I?
Yeah, you did take one of mine. Yep.
I'll leave that for you because it's one of my second choices. Another second choice I had was, and this is leading into my first choice here, I did have to verify that this was 2021 because it was earlier in the year, but it was a Korean drama that I watched called Familiar Wife. Familiar Wife is a very interesting show about a man who realizes he can go back in time. They do a little bit of indeterminate, like, okay, the science is not that well explained. Like, oh, how long can he go back in time for? But I was very pleased with how they handled, okay, he goes back in time and then he comes back into the future and everything's changed. They handled that very well. And it's called Familiar Wife, and it's about a guy who doesn't like his life. So he goes back in time to change it so he doesn't marry his wife and marries another woman. Mm-hmm. But then he, through this realizes that it wasn't his wife that was bad toward him. It was he was bad toward his wife, which basically turned his wife into a monster because he was not good to her. And then goes through a whole struggle of, well, I shouldn't be loved then. Because even in his recreated future, his wife starts falling in love with him. And he's like, no, you can't fall in love with me. I'll just do the same thing again to you. So anyway, I enjoyed that show for the timey-wimey parts of it, especially. I mean, yes, some of it was a little fast and loose. Like, wait a minute, how long are you back in time for? but they go back in time a few times and then change things, and still that part is logically held up. And he comes back to the future and doesn't have any memories of his past, which is quite interesting, because then he has to discover what happens. Wait, you're not my friend, or this changed or that changed or whatever. And I liked that. That was very good. So anyway, it's called Familiar Wife. It's on Netflix. I think it was fun. I don't know if it's something everybody should watch, but anyway, that's my second choice. Sorry. My first choice is Vincenzo. I'm sorry. I'm going to pick Vincenzo as my favorite TV show for this year. Does it surprise you, Ryan?
No, not at all.
That was a good show, huh?
It was a very good show. You have nothing to apologize for, because I'm going to reveal something about my picks.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned both of the two that I was going to put in.
Both of them? Sorry, I sniped them, huh? Go ahead. For
those of you who haven't heard us talk about Vincenzo, we talk about it for a significant portion of, what was it, episode 49?
49. Mm-hmm.
So go back and listen to My Hill to Die On episode 49 to listen to us talk about Vincenzo. But it is an excellent show. I gave Nate a hard time about him forcing me to watch this show that ended up being 30 hours that I couldn't watch anything else. But quite honestly, I enjoyed every hour of that 30-hour extravaganza.
Yep. That was a fun show.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, everybody should go watch Vincenzo. Take a look for yourself. So Loki's your second, though, too?
Loki was my second. Surprise, surprise, I was not going to pick Loki as my number one. I thought both Loki and Vincenzo were excellent. But I feel like... because it came out earlier in the year, Loki was so far back that the storyline is starting to meld in with the background of my brain.
Well, I think to me, Loki was teaching a guy how to love, right? Let's get this guy to learn how to love someone else so that he actually cares, right, about somebody other than himself. And I think that was great. Great premise, everything. I think really one of the big ways that Vincenzo beats it is that it's got, 20 more hours of TV behind it.
It's only like 6 episodes, isn't it?
It's only 6 episodes, yeah. And they were all great, except for maybe one, or parts of one.
Yeah, there was one of them that I felt like could have been stronger.
Mm-hmm. Really, the only thing that Vincenzo beats it because Vincenzo did that and did more than that. Where Loki did that and it stopped because that's what they were shooting for. But Vincenzo did that plus a bit more. So
I think both were excellent shows, though. So if you haven't seen either Vincenzo or Loki, I highly, highly, highly recommend. Go and watch it.
Yeah, Loki definitely requires a bit of Marvel backstory, though. You should at least watch the first Avengers movie.
Also, a second season is in development, so...
Oh, good deal. All right, event trip.
So I'm going to say right now, I don't think I did an event or a trip this year.
And I'm not going to surprise you with one this time also. Remember when we saw Patrick Stewart? Come on, Ryan, you didn't forget that, did you?
Yes, I would never forget that. Honestly, I was thinking back on what did I do this year. And, I mean, most of this year, due to, the situation, has been me working, keeping up with things, trying to keep sane. And I visited my family back in the States, and that was about the biggest trip I did. I didn't go anywhere for a vacation. I didn't really do too much aside from visiting family. And my family who listened to this, it was great seeing you, and so I hope to see you again soon. But I didn't even go to Disney World. I didn't go and visit a new place in Japan that I've never been to. I've basically become a quasi-hermit in the past year. And that's something that I would really like to not do next year.
You have to find some place to go.
So my aim is to, go and visit places and see things, which, I'll be honest, was increasingly becoming one of my goals to do that more often before the situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember you talking about that.
In 2019, I was saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go here. I got money saved up. I'm gonna go these places, and then the world happened. So here's to next year, and may things be slightly less monotonous in this aspect.
You're almost sniping mine, Ryan, because I'm going to say my favorite event or trip from this year was going to Disneyland in May. That was a big trip for us. We discussed this at length in episode 42, so please go back and listen to that episode, which I think was pretty fun also. It was a great trip to Disneyland where we ended up going on 33 rides in a day because almost no one was there. A lot of things worked out very well for us. Disney Sea went well too, but I think Disneyland is always the best park, I think, for us. Disney Sea is a good one, but Disneyland, I think, has the most rides for my kids. Disney Sea has a lot of good rides. They're not all designed for my kids. Disneyland in May, which we talked about in episode 42, go back and listen to that. Quite fun.
So, music.
Mm-hmm.
I looked back on last year, and apparently I just rattled off a million different bands.
You did, I remember. Mm-hmm.
So I thought...
Are you going to hold yourself to one this time?
Why break with tradition?
You're going to do a whole slew again, huh?
Why break with tradition? And I'm just going to do a slew of things that I listen to. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail about each one, but I thought I'll just give a glimpse into my listening habits over the past year. So in addition to everything I listed last time, because I didn't cut any of those out, why would I do that? Things that got folded into my cycle of music were things like, I apparently didn't mention the Longest Johns last time. They normally do a lot of sea shanties, which are just fun. But one of the things that they released pretty recently is they actually released a chiptune version of a lot of their songs. So it sounds like Commodore 64.
Oh, like 8-bit kind of songs.
Yeah, like 8-bit kind of songs. So it's all their songs, but done to that sort of style of music. It is incredibly entertaining. Actually, speaking of that, I went on a kick a couple of weeks ago of what is only could be described as bard rock.
Bard rock, really?
Where you take modern songs and then set them to medieval music stylings. It is excellent, so if you haven't heard anything like that, look it up. You'll find a bunch of examples of it. I apparently never mentioned Mono last year.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, just I always listen to them, so great. A band that I folded into my listening habits this year is Frightened Rabbit. They're kind of a moody band, but you know what? I love it. Yeah, so aside from that, just, everything I listed last time.
Plus all the other music. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Plus all the other music. I listen to a lot of random stuff. What can I say? I can tell you right now, last time apparently I said The Cog is Dead, Ailstorm, game soundtracks, Tom Waits, Sufjan Stevens, Montaigne, The Deer Hunter, and a Final Fantasy VI reimagining album called Balance and Ruin. So, yeah, none of those have fallen off my listening cycle.
Well, I am going to, actually similar to last year, I like the Pivot podcast. I've mentioned it actually last year when I picked up my new music. And this year also happens to be the time where my new music comes from that podcast. And this time it comes from the actual singer himself. So the man who runs the Pivot, his name is Andrew Osenga. I knew him as a guitarist in the band Caedmon's Call. Mm-hmm. Which I listened to a lot in college. He joined, I think, just after I left college, actually, or toward the end of my college years. But he has a great podcast, and he recently had a Kickstarter for a new album, and he recorded demo tracks for this new album that you could purchase through the Kickstarter and get a digital download also. So I did a digital download of the new album when it's ready. Plus he gave all those who backed at certain levels the demo tracks of that. So I think you've probably heard them already. If I played them for you, you'd recognize them because your office is next to mine and you can hear my music sometimes. So I think you probably already heard it. This is Andrew Osenga, and this is his Headwater album, which is not technically out yet, but because I backed this Kickstarter, I got the demo tracks. So I have very much been enjoying it. The story behind this album, which I'll try to link to his podcast episode that he talks about this in the show notes. I didn't know his previous solo album that well, but apparently he was mentioning that his previous solo album is fairly negative toward the things that are happening in the world, and he wanted to create a more positive album. If his children goes back and listen to his career of music, he'd like a more positive album than that. So he created this one, which focuses on the love of God and things like that toward us humans. And I very much enjoy that part of it. Listening back through these tracks, yep, I can definitely feel that sense of joy and happiness in Christ. And the other interesting thing about it is while recording these demo tracks, he apparently injured his vocal cords. he had pretty much finished recording all of the demo tracks, almost all of them. In fact, in one of the demo tracks, he has his daughter sing because he couldn't sing those lines. So she sang because he was well into his injury and was told he could no longer sing. So his daughter sang part of it, which is kind of neat. I kind of hope he keeps that because it's pretty cool. And he's now since recovered and then was able to release this to Kickstarter and release a podcast about this whole adventure he's been on. I was wondering why he hadn't recorded a podcast in a while, and that's the reason. He might have mentioned it somewhere else, but I only listen to him on the podcast. I don't follow him any other media way. So yep, I picked up this also from The Pivot. So very good album by Andrew Osenga, the guy who's running The Pivot itself. I'm excited to get the real version next year, I guess.
Well, I'm excited to listen in on it over the wall that we share.
Sounds good.
All right, new thing?
New thing.
So, what's your favorite new thing from this past year?
I was going back and forth on this a little bit. I would love to have said my new MacBook Pro. That did not arrive yet.
It didn't arrive?
Since we only have 3 days left of school before the end of 2021, I'm getting very skeptical that it will arrive in time. And even if it does arrive in time, it'll probably arrive on the 16th. Then I have the ethical question, do I set up mine and not the other 3 people who got theirs? So I hope it doesn't arrive on the 16th because that will just cause a headache. So nope, not my MacBook Pro. I did get a really nice TV this year too, but I don't think it's a favorite thing. I think it's something that will be in my house for the next 15 years. So I think I will have a lot of time to enjoy it. But I don't think it's a favorite thing. I think, though, my favorite thing is the other screen in my house that I got this year, which is my iPad Pro. I am surprised at how much I use this new iPad Pro compared to my last iPad. I actually don't think it's because this iPad is faster that I use it more. I think it's because the battery lasts forever. That's why I like it more. Like even this morning, I did probably 2 hours worth of work on it, the prep for this show, plus some editing of a podcast episode, and the battery went down 20%. So I used it pretty hard, screen full brightness, everything on, and it only went down 20%. I love it. The battery just lasts forever. I don't know. I like this new iPad Pro. It is fast. Oh, and I think one of the other benefits I like about it too is that I did get the 1 terabyte version. So I have an obscene amount of space. I have actually stored so many movies on it just because I have space. So it's like, well, I might as well build up a library of movies on the iPad. So I do. If I put a movie on there, I don't delete it. I just put it into the library folder. So I've got a whole lot of movies. I've got back to episode 44 of the edits on there. I haven't deleted them off yet. I just got an obscene amount of space. I don't run out. It's not like my last iPad where basically I could only keep 1 episode's worth of backlog in there. No, I got 6 episodes worth of backlog in there now. So I love it. So much space. So I think that's another reason why I like it more too, is that I never get the almost out of space warning. Anyway, my iPad Pro is pretty special.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying mine.
Is that your favorite new thing?
No.
No? Okay.
There's something else.
You probably have a long battery life too, right?
Yeah.
On your iPad? I mean, because I find that now I pull it out for Google Docs things. I can sit in a meeting and type Google Docs notes and not run out of battery, which my computer does. Sitting in a meeting for 1 hour on Google Docs. And I'm like, what? My computer's run out of battery. Ugh.
No, my iPad lasts for a long time. I think if there's one thing, it's when I run Ferrite for upwards of 8 hours, then it starts to get a little low.
Oh my, 8 hours.
I have had a couple of stretches of doing an 8-hour editing spree, mostly because I go, nope, I don't like that. 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 And just repeating the same 30-second clip over and over again.
Until you get the edit just right?
Yep, until I get it just right. I say 8 hours. I don't know if it's ever been quite 8 hours.
Feels like it, though.
It might feel like it. I've definitely done a couple of 6-hour ones. But then it's also sometimes a transition from I'm writing for 2-3 hours and then edit for another 3 hours.
And do you write on your iPad?
I do write on my iPad.
Convenient.
If anything, I might consider getting a better keyboard in the future. Every once in a while, because it's trying to save battery, the keyboard will drop its connection and I have to hit a key a couple of times before it'll kick back in, simply because it's trying to save on battery. It lasts forever, but it goes into battery saving mode far faster than I would ever like, especially because I tend to be a thinker when it comes to my writing. Like, I'll sit there and stare at a sentence for 20 minutes sometimes until I finally figure out what I want to say next.
Which keyboard do you have?
I don't remember what brand it is. I'll show it to you next time I see you.
Oh, that's right. It's the fold-out one, right?
It's the fold-out one, yeah.
Yeah, I do think that because I have the keyboard case, I do realize I use a keyboard more often. Actually, one of the things I really appreciate about the keyboard case that I didn't think I'd ever appreciate, because the keyboard is basically almost always attached, the keyboard never takes up on-screen space. I really like that. Most of the time when I'm editing podcasts in Ferrite, I like to hold my iPad without the keyboard case because I don't generally need a keyboard. But then when it comes to type in a chapter title, it's the keyboard. Oh, it's like, oh, the keyboard's taking up all the space on the screen. It's kind of funny.
I think for me, the struggle is I really like the case that I do have because it's nice and sturdy. And I really like the way that it holds the pen.
Yes, your case is nice.
So if I got a different keyboard, I would want to really think through what type I got.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't even about what is actually my favorite thing of the year.
Oh, yeah, let's go back to that. Yes.
My favorite new thing is something completely different anyway.
Okay.
Because did I ever mention that I got a PS5 this year?
Only about 6 or 7 times on the podcast, and then, another 200 in real life. But,
So I got this small thing in my life called a PS5.
Is it smaller than your PS4?
No, it's definitely not smaller than my PS4.
I thought it was larger, right?
It's larger. No, I got a PS5, and, for the amount of gaming that I do, the PS5 is fantastic. I really like that I got a disc version of the PS5. So it has a disk drive. You could have gotten one that didn't have a disk drive.
You mean like physical media?
Like a physical media player, yes.
It reads it with light off of a laser?
Yes. It reads it with light. I did that for one specific reason. I have a not insignificant collection of PS4 games, and the PS5 is backwards compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put in your PS4 games, not have to keep both systems out.
Exactly. You don't have to put 2 systems on your TV now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wise.
And because the PS5 has a better infrastructure, it loads a whole lot quicker. So you can play all those PS4 games, and it will take a portion of the time to load up the new areas and things like that. It is just excellent. The PS5 has been a wonderful, wonderful thing to add into my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Good. Can you, do you do other things like watch YouTube or like non-gamey things on your PS5?
Oh, yes. You can attach your Apple TV to it as well.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And so I have played movies through it, watched YouTube through it. So, yeah, you can turn it into very much a home center kind of thing. If I have something on my Apple TV, oftentimes I will watch it through the PS5 now, rather than needing to load up a computer and broadcast it in some other way. For example, earlier this week, I decided to start my annual tradition of watching Lord of the Rings, and so, just loaded up the PS5, a little bit of light movie watching.
Lord of the Rings Extended Edition is not the definition of light movie watching.
Yeah, just a nice little short thing.
And, nothing you have to understand or kind of accept. No.
Is it the ring?
No.
Is it the ring that you don't understand?
Yeah, what's up with the ring anyway? Why do they need to? Never mind.
Well, you see, the one ring, it is there to rule over all the other rings. And by extension, but that's the basic gist.
All right, favorite drink and Kit Kat.
Favorite drink and Kit Kat.
We did the adventure of Kit Kats this year, and actually, we pretty much, the whole year has Kit Kats in it. We had Kit Kats every week. We did a taste test. Ryan, what's your favorite Kit Kat of the year?
Sakura is the winner. I really enjoyed the flavor. I really enjoyed the cinnamon taste that was in it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know I didn't give it a rating, but I think of all the ones that I had throughout the year, Sakura was definitely my favorite one that I tasted the entire year. I have a couple of close run-ups, but I'll wait and let you say your top one before I steal from you.
Yep, I think I'm going to pick a mint, actually.
Surprise.
Yeah, I know. I do remember that one being a big favorite of mine, although I remember Peach Parfait being very good too. And Sakura was good as well, but I think I think mint was probably my favorite. It's a plain flavor, I know, but still, I think it's my favorite.
It's a good flavor. Actually, the two that I was thinking about as my backups were mint and raspberry.
Yeah, I remember you liking the raspberry one a lot. Probably more than me.
Yeah, I think between those two, raspberry would have been actually number 2 for me, and then mint being number 3. All 3 of them were delicious, though.
I think it would be hard for me to pick 2. I don't remember the difference between peach parfait and sakura enough to decide a second, I think. But it's going to be one of those two. Yeah, those are good Kit Kats. I don't think we have to pick a worst.
Well, as for drinks, I would say that my favorite drink was definitely the kiwi.
The kiwi Mikachu, huh?
No.
Where we had 2 sips. That is the one drink I did not finish. I have finished every other drink. I did not finish the kiwi Mikachu.
Actually, my number 1 drink was the Soai Yuzu cider.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. That was a good drink.
It was great. It was a solid drink. There's nothing bad about it. Let's see if it competes with what we're having a little bit later.
Probably not. But anyway, I do want to... I have had more spicy ginger ale since the episode because our friend Scott keeps buying it for me. And I think it has grown on me, actually. I think I would rate it higher now.
Really? Because I think I might go lower now.
I know. I think you hated it. I mean, even listening back to that episode today was pretty funny. It was painful for you.
It was genuinely painful for me.
But that drink has definitely grown on me some more. I mean, the ginger is still very strong. But I think I like it more than a 6. I think I should have rated it even higher on the day of, probably. I think it might go as high as an 8. I don't think it's going to be as high as a 9. It wouldn't beat Soai Yuzu cider. But I think it's higher than a 6. I don't know if I need to retroactively change my score. I think maybe I'll just leave it as 6 because that's what I said during the episode. But I think I like it better than a 6 now. I think I could probably go up to 8 now.
Well, if you're adding 2 points, I'll take 2 away.
Oh, no. Do you think it's as bad as Kiwi Mikachu? Come on.
No, nothing's that bad. Like, I genuinely thought I was going to throw up that day.
That was a very bad drink. I thought it was going to be bad. I was expecting bad. I was not expecting that bad. Not at all. That was very surprising.
Based on all this sparkling recommendation, Kiwi Mikachu, if you want to sponsor us.
We'd be happy. Favorite main media book, Ryan? This is good. One of the questions I have for you is the rules on this. Are we allowed to pick stuff we brought to the table?
I think I'm going to say yes.
If we're rolling this into the favorite book we read this year, because that's one of the reasons why we decided to split out main media into 2, books and visual, is because we were like, well, we kind of read books for the show.
I read books outside the show too, but here's the thing is, all the books that I read outside the show this year that I really loved, guess what happened? They got added to the list.
Yeah. Yes. And all the books that I read outside the show, I decided they're not making it on the list, so they're not my favorites.
I mean, I might ask you of the ones that I brought, which was your favorite?
I did make a list of both. So I was thinking about favorite main media book, and I think I am going to pick Hero of Ages again, which is what I did last year. I picked the book that we're reading for the thing. But I got to tell you, Dune was a close second. And I think, again, a close third to that, I think was Bridge to Terabithia. So looking back, right? I had picked 2 of my favorite books as a child, which was Bridge to Terabithia and Giver. And I think Giver held up pretty well. Reading it now again as an adult, I think maybe it moved down a slight notch from where I had placed it in my list of all-time books as a child. I think Bridge to Terabithia improved its rating, reading it as an adult now, than when I read it as a child in my head. So I think that moved up a notch. I was pleased about that. But I think Dune was a good one. I think the only thing that bumped that down, I think, was my thoughts on the ending, which we talked about in the episode. But I think Hero of Ages edges it out as my favorite book of the year.
I'm glad to hear that. I would say that for me, my favorite book of the year, I am going to present 2, and one is one that you brought, and one is one that I brought.
Mm-hmm.
So the one that you brought is Record of a Spaceborne Few.
Oh, okay, good. Mm-hmm.
We've read several Becky Chambers books, and they're all great. I really enjoyed that book.
It was a very good book. It, again, just misses out on my top 3 probably, but that was a very good book. I enjoyed it a lot too. I will be reading another Becky Chambers book probably during break, so I'm looking forward to that. Maybe I'll add it to the list too if I like it. So
that was the one that you brought, and the one that I brought actually that tied for me was This Is How You Lose the Time War.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I felt like This Is How You Lose the Time War was written specifically for a reader like me who loves the very poetic language while also loving timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, this was the book that I struggled with.
Yeah.
I did not like this book.
Oh, I know.
This did not make my list, but that's okay. That's okay. It made your list. That's fine.
It made my list. That's the thing. It was a good fit for me. It was not a great fit for you. And so those are the two books that I think I loved the most out of all of our book media that we read this year. For me, Well of Ascension and Hero of Ages, I've read these books now several times.
Yeah, so they'll have a harder time winning for this year.
I had read them several times before, so, they had lost, not because they were not good books, but because they, for me, didn't feel like a book I had read this year because I had read them many years ago for the first time. This was just a rereading.
I think that's one of the different things. Yeah, I think Bridget to Terabithia, because it's been like maybe 25 years since I read it last time, it still kind of felt like a new book to me in some ways. So,
whereas I think the last time I read the Mistborn series was, I probably last reread it like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right. Because it only came out 10 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm.
Hero of Ages came out in 2008.
Okay, so okay. Actually, I'm thinking now that I think I actually have a few more problems with Hero of Ages than I did with Dune. But I think it still wins anyway.
Yeah.
I think my problems are much more minor with Hero of Ages. Anyway, later. We're talking about it later. Later. Mm-hmm. I have questions for you too. We'll talk about it later. Favorite main media visual?
So, looking through this all.
Well, there's a shorter list this time. So it was a bit harder to pick, I think.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's a problem. There were some good things in here, but it was definitely a shorter list.
It was a shorter list. For me, I specifically wanted to go with something that you presented for this. Mostly because, for me, visual media, I wanted to pick something that I was not presenting. And therefore, that was this year too. Never mind, I'm changing again.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say Vincenzo.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm going to tie it. Vincenzo and Ted Lasso.
I put the lines in for that reason, so that it's very clear where the year started.
Yeah, because I forgot that Ted Lasso was technically this year, because we recorded it on the 9th of January.
Mm-hmm.
But those two TV shows were probably the best visual media that we showed this year for me. Ted Lasso is just... If you haven't seen Ted Lasso yet, fix that.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the second season yet?
No, I did not.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Second season was good. The first season has the newness, so that helps raise its goodness. Second season doesn't have as much newness, but I think it's still good. I enjoyed it.
I just thought Ted Lasso was just a spot of overwhelming positivity in a world that really just needed it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Vincenzo is just, it's great. Because, what wouldn't you do for your corn salad?
It wasn't named Inzaghi.
Inzaghi. Oh, Inzaghi.
Oh, good stuff. I need Bye Bye Balloon. I want to visit the Bye Bye Balloon travel agency. Plan my next getaway. Because you can get away by balloon.
Maybe one day you'll need a Bye Bye Balloon.
I hope not. Anyway, yeah, I was going to pick Vincenzo too because I picked it already as a favorite TV show. But to pick something that you brought to the table, it was actually a little bit tough. There are some good ones that you brought. But I think I'm going to go with A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, slightly edging out Dr. Harple's sing-along blog. Both were very fun, but I think A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood struck a different kind of chord than Dr. Harple's sing-along blog would be able to do. I enjoyed them both, and Stardust was pretty close too, but I'm going to say that I liked the documentary told in story form. I didn't expect that from that movie. I think they did a very good job of portraying it that way. I'm not sure many other documentaries will succeed that way, but I think that A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was able to. So yeah, I enjoyed that. But yeah, Dr. Harple's sing-along blog was just a great amount of hilarity. So that was quite fun.
Yeah, both are fantastic. I'm glad that I got a chance to show those to you this year.
Yep, I enjoyed those. You didn't pick Moon? Oh, come on, Ryan.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was good.
It's a solo actor movie.
It was a solo actor movie. But you know what? At the end of the day...
Oh, Shakiest Gun in the West. Ah. Yeah, okay, I lost to Vincenzo. Yeah, it makes sense.
You're talking about things and then you are forgetting what I actually picked.
Yeah, Shakey's Gun in the West might be the last on the list of things I brought, though.
Let's be fair. If we're going to pick the best movie, shouldn't we just both be just picking The Princess Bride again?
Yeah, Princess Bride was a great movie.
Always is.
Although technically I didn't watch the movie. I only read the book. I think I found the CC Lemon for you, didn't I, right?
Yep, and I brought the Kit Kats, so...
Yes. So hopefully I found the better one. We'll see if that's actually true, though.
I'm reasonably sure you found the better one.
Me too. But anyway, I am a little bit skeptical of this. I found a CC Lemon Yuzu Honey. And, you know, the history we have with CC Lemon and honey is not good.
Yes, but it's got yuzu, and we were very positive of the last yuzu drink we had.
We were very positive of the last yuzu drink we had. We'll see. Maybe the yuzu will salvage it. The yuzu is a lot more sour. It depends on the mix, right? It depends on the mix of honey and yuzu.
If it's anything like the rich honey or what was the other honey one?
Sweet honey.
Sweet honey.
Episode 31 was sweet honey, and rich honey was episode 7.
Those had too much honey and too artificially honey.
Right, and you know, they weren't bumping up the sourness. And this one, with yuzu and honey, you would think that it's going to be at least bumping up the sourness and sweetness at the same time. So...
it might balance.
It might. I'm skeptical, but it might.
Oh, I'm very skeptical.
It's a nice bottle. I like the bees.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a bee.
You can smell the yuzu. Not much honey in the smell.
Nope, not a whole lot, but a lot of yuzu.
Better than I expected. The honey is an aftertaste, but the yuzu is nice and strong right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The yuzu is good.
The yuzu is good.
It's not overly strong yuzu. If anything, the yuzu is a little bit weak. It's still good, but it's a little bit weak.
I think my problem is the honey feels like it's diluting the yuzu.
No, exactly. The honey is making the yuzu not taste as good.
You have the nice sharp flavor of the yuzu, and then all of a sudden it feels like your mouth is getting coated with the flavor of honey as the aftertaste.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want. I want more yuzu.
I do. I want more yuzu.
It's good. It's just, it feels like greatness was within reach, and then it instead decided, nah, I'm not going to reach.
Are these honey drinks popular? I don't read any news or anything, but the fact that they keep making these honey drinks, people must be buying them.
I will say that whenever I see honey drinks like this, I'm reminded of the warm yuzu honey tea drink that is in basically every vending machine.
Mm-hmm.
And those are fantastic.
They are. They're very good. It's similar to the Korean yuzu tea.
It's perfect, especially in cold winter months or when you think that you might be starting to get a tickle in your throat of some kind of sickness. That's the thing they're trying to capture in these drinks, I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. Warm vending machines is something America needs to copy.
Mm-hmm.
Warm vending machines are great in the winter days.
You say that, but there's other things that America also needs to realize. Like, healthcare, Nikuman. These are the important things. Anyway, so the other thing that we have for today is the Kit Kat.
Wait. We got to give it a rating. We got to give it a number, Ryan. I think I'm going to go as high as a 7, I think. It's better than passing, but not as good as, winning. It's going to pass. It's definitely over 5.
It's definitely over 5. My problem is, I don't want to quite give it a 7, I don't think.
I taste the honey, but it's not as strong as the yuzu. That's why I'm thinking it's winning out.
You are right. I'm going to give it a 7.
You can disagree with me, Ryan.
No, it's more along the lines of, so here's where I was at. I was trying to decide, for me, I was looking back at the previous scores I've given.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better than honey lemon cider? Is it better than sakura cola? Is it better than mikan cola? The answer to all those is yes.
Mm-hmm.
But was it as good as Fanta Premier Orange? And actually, in retrospect, I think I will say yes to that. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go as high as 7. I was trying to determine whether it was like a 6.5, 6.87, somewhere in that ballpark.
Oh, such precision.
You got to be precise.
We have a 10-point scale. Do we really need a 100-point scale or a 1,000-point scale if you're going to 6.87?
What we do is we start going into fractions. So the Kit Kat that we got today is pistachio.
Which I have to keep learning how to spell. Man, when I typed it to you the first time, I could not figure out how to spell it. And I'm glad the guesser came up. Did you mean to type pistachio? Because that's what it looks like you're trying to type. Yes, that's the one. Select it. Send it off to Ryan.
All of these Kit Kats have squirrels on the wrapper.
And they're all different color. I took pictures of 3 pistachio ones for the cover art for this part of the thing. Because it's like, oh, look, there's 3 different colors in the bag. How exciting.
As for the Kit Kat itself, it looks like it is dark chocolate. Or not dark chocolate, but milk chocolate.
Oh, milk chocolate, yeah. It's not neon green, so that hopefully has something going for it.
My guess is it's all going to be in the wafer.
Yeah, so will the milk chocolate save it? I guess we can taste it to find out.
I'm going to crack it just to take a look at it. It looks like the normal color, maybe slightly greener than normal.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. I agree with that assessment. Let's see. Am I not tasting it? I just don't taste it. I don't taste the pistachio. Am I just missing it?
You're missing it. It's very subtle, though. It's like real subtle.
I mean, I don't have a regular Kit Kat next to me to compare to.
It is a regular Kit Kat. It's just slightly nuttier. Barely anything. It's passed in the general area of somebody who has just recently had a peanut. Or it was wrapped by somebody who had just finished a peanut butter sandwich. That's the level of nuttiness that this is giving me.
Very light.
Very light.
Oof, then how do we rate it?
I had a little bit more flavor on that one.
I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out I'm not even sure I know what pistachios taste like because I don't eat them that often. And I think the reason I don't eat them that often is because I just don't want to shell them. I was afraid of them as a kid because I just didn't want to shell it. So I guess I'm not eating. I'm assuming a pistachio tastes similar to a peanut.
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
I'm going to be honest. This isn't bad.
No, it's not bad. I think it's too plain.
It's very plain. I would say it's going to end up being on par with Mont Blanc.
Mont Blanc, yeah. Yeah. I guess that's not a bad assessment.
What did I say about the Mont Blanc?
Tastes like cake.
I said it tastes a little bit like cake, but my problem was the flavor is a little too normal.
Yeah.
Which is about how I feel about this. It tastes like a normal Kit Kat.
Yeah, I think I'll go with a 6 also. I don't know. I think in some ways, trying to figure out if the nuttiness detracts, but I guess I don't think so.
I don't feel it detracts. I think it adds to the flavor, but I do feel like it's so subtle that it's not worth the extra money.
Yeah, I wonder if this is one that only came with 11 in the bag.
It did.
They gypped us out on one Kit Kat.
Actually, the next 3 all only came with 11. Whenever it only comes with 11...
Yeah, you still give me 6.
I always still give you 6.
Hey, now.
I don't need 6. You can pawn them off onto family. I would have to eat them all myself.
Especially one like this, which is mostly plain.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm only saving myself from 1, but still.
Ryan, I read a long book again.
I didn't feel like this one was too long.
You know, I don't ever feel like it's long until I check the book out of the library and realize this is how much I read.
How many pages was it?
I think it's 700. I left it upstairs, but I think it's like 700 pages.
I'm reading here that the hardback, because it's a taller book, ended up being about 600 pages. 572. So yes, I did make you read a little bit of a longer book, but, you know, just keep this in mind. I could have made you read the 40-hour book.
Oh, yeah, what's that one?
That one's The Name of the Wind.
It's still Sanderson, though?
No, that is not. That's Patrick Rothfuss.
Oh, okay.
Good book, but the problem is it's a trilogy, and the third book has not come out, and it's been like 10 years since the second book. He is a very good writer, but he takes forever between books.
Let's stick to this trilogy first.
Anyway, before we get into all the things about Mistborn, about the final book of the Era 1 of Mistborn, I should probably summarize a few things for you if it's been a while and you just need a little bit of a refresher. But, as always, if you have not read the book, I recommend that you turn off the podcast now, go read the book, and come back and join us when you're done. The Hero of Ages is the final book of Era 1 of Mistborn. At the end of the Well of Ascension, Vin, in her effort to do what was right, ended up following a prophecy which causes the release of a being, one known as Ruin, into the world. This act has put the world on course for destruction, as Ruin itself says it's there to clean up and turn off the lights. The entire story centers around what various people in this world are doing and the ways they're trying to survive and stop the world from falling apart. Sazed tries to establish various alliances throughout the world and is continuing in his own studies into religion to try and find some sort of faith when he has lost his own faith. Spook ends up getting heavily involved in a town called Urto. He ends up fighting with the citizen, who has become exceedingly violent against anyone of noble birth. Vin and Ellen try to take over Fadrix City. Both Urto and Fadrix are one of many places that contain caches of food and water that had been set up by the Lord Ruler before his death. And in addition, while all this is going on, Vin is trying to discover the secret behind the mist and behind the power that had escaped and how they can hopefully prevent the end of the world. In the middle of all of this, they discover through research that in addition to allomancy and feruchemy, there is a third kind of ability, one that is solely of Ruin, one called hemalurgy, which is a transference of power from one being to another through the act of impaling metal spikes from one person into another. These metal spikes are also used in the creation of Kolos, Inquisitors, and Kandra. When a spike is driven through them, it would give them powers based upon the material of the spike, its placement, and the person who was killed. And as its power is based solely out of Ruin, if one had been pierced by one of these metal spikes, it allowed Ruin to speak and influence them. During one of the times that Vin and Ellen were investigating Fadrix City, Vin is captured and questioned by yeomen. During this time, Ruin reveals himself to Vin, and Vin tries to escape, but Ruin, in the process of all this, takes control of the Kolos army and sends it to attack the city. As I said before, since they were created with hemalurgy, he had the full power and ability to do so. Vin, in seeing they are about to attack the humans, decides to lead Ruin and lead the Kolos away from the city by returning to Luthadel. In Luthadel, she ends up facing off against Marsh and some of the remaining Steel Inquisitors, and in this fight is greatly hurt, and it seems that she is going to lose. And it's only when Marsh, with the last vestiges of his humanity, rips the earring from her ear, which allows her to be free of Ruin, as it itself was another hemalurgic spike. This allowed her to take on the full power of the mists, the power of preservation, and stand in equal footing with Ruin. It seemed to be a stalemate between Vin and Ruin, but it came to a head at the pits of Hathsin, a place where Atium is mined, or was mined before it was destroyed by Kelsier. Because Ruin needed one more thing to regain his full power. His body. His body being those little pieces of Atium. And it's revealed that the Kandra had been storing it up, had been hiding it. And Tensoon reveals this secret to Elend, who decides in a last-ditch effort to help Vin by taking that Atium and burning it all inside of himself, along with some of the other members of his army who had the power to burn Atium. In the process of this fight, Elend ends up dying, and Vin, in her rage, kills Ruin. And by doing so, because they were on equal footing, both she and Ruin die. So the three, Ruin, Elend, and Vin, fall dead in the same area. And as they do, power seeps from the bodies of Ruin and Vin, the powers of preservation and Ruin. It is then Sazed, seeing this, wearing his metal mines, decides to take the power upon himself to try to fix this broken world. He takes that power and restores the world to how it was supposed to be, how it was before the rise of the final empire. This is the problem. There is so stinking much, and even all that stuff skips over a whole lot. Like, I mentioned Spook, like, in 2 sentences, and how many chapters were dedicated to Spook?
A lot, yes.
Yes. So I'm just like, I am not mentioning anything near enough what needs to be said.
Well, even all the Khandra stuff.
Which is extremely important, but if you're focusing on the main A-plot of Vin, Elend, and the battle between Preservation and Ruin, yeah. I mean, I could go through it, but we'd be adding on another, like, 10 minutes of just summary.
Right. I think let's get into the good stuff, because we'll bring up some of it here. But really, if you haven't read it, you should go read it and go listen to our other podcasts about the first 2 books. So
yeah,
go read it.
First things first, as always, as it seems a requirement for me to ask, initial feelings.
I think my feelings are mixed. Not to say that I didn't like it. Nothing I think that's big.
Well, I mean, you did pick it as your favorite book of the year.
Right. I did pick it earlier. I've already said that. But first, I think I might have even mentioned to you, maybe even on the podcast, I should listen back to see, because then it would be recorded and I would have proof. But I think I said something like, I think it's going to be Sazed that's the hero of ages, right? He's doing all the research back in the previous book. It's going to be him. Did I say that? Maybe I didn't.
I don't think you said that on the podcast, but I believe you said that to me.
At least you remember that I had put this down before it happened.
As you were reading the book, I think the first thing you said to me about that is, it's Sazed who's doing all the prequel stuff at the beginning of each chapter, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. But I think it was back in Well of Ascension when I was thinking, Sazed's doing all this research. He's going to be the hero of ages. I don't know if I ever said it out loud, and if I didn't say it out loud, it doesn't really count. But still, I think I said it, but still. Anyway, one of the things I couldn't figure out, though, is did we know earlier that the mist was Preservation's body?
What do you mean by know earlier?
Okay, here's one thing, and this is tied in with this, because Kelsier kept saying the mists will give her strength.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, did Kelsier just say that because the mists were hiding him, and he not know how much more that statement was true? Or did he actually know? Or...
I think there were certain things that were alluded to that the mists seemed very tied to the idea of being Mistborn.
Right, and the mists swirled around him, right?
There's the idea of when you burn tin, you can see through the mists. Normally, if you think about, like, oh, you just have more acute vision, well, if you have more acute vision, a mist should just look thicker to you. But instead, it becomes clear. So if you're thinking about all these things, it seems very tied to the idea of mist being tied to Mistborn-ness.
I don't know. One of the things I'm trying to figure out is, while the ending seemed pretty planned out, there were a few things that seemed a bit convenient. I think the fact that the mists for Preservation's body was one of them. It's not a bad thing. It's just because it's been there the whole time. So it's not like oh, it just popped up in the last chapter of this book.
If you think about the end of the Final Empire, she actually wins because
of the mist.
Because she is able to draw on the power of the mist. But you also notice it's consistent because she was only able to draw on the power of the mist when the Lord Emperor ripped the earring, which was the hemalurgic spike, out of her during that fight.
Right. I did think that, yes. So it's been consistent.
So, yes, you might think that it's convenient, but I think it's the fact that this thing has been consistent. One of the things I did in preparation was I reread just the beginnings of every chapter, the part that Sazed is doing.
Oh, yeah. Actually, there's a nice Coppermind page on that. I read through that one again.
And if you just read through that straight through, it becomes obvious. Mm-hmm. Because, well, I mean, it makes sense because Sazed is the researcher.
Here's a big convenient one. The people who were sick the longest were the ones that could burn atium. I mean, he explains it a little bit, but I thought atium wasn't one of the 16 metals. Okay, I thought atium was like a special metal. Oh, atium is a god metal.
Yeah, so there's 16 plus atium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 16 plus a few god metals. So, I don't know. I don't think it really matters in the end that this is convenient, because even if it wasn't the 16 guys, for all we know, Ellen could have swallowed all the Atem and just burned it all, right? I mean, it's not important.
That would have been a lot more on a single person too. I mean, can you just imagine
swallowing a well full of metal? But yeah, it's a point that nothing hinges on this. It's fine. It's like, oh, that's slightly convenient. Okay. But yeah, not the end of it. One of the things that surprised me, I think this is where most of my mixed feelings came from, was that it wasn't exactly the happy ending I was expecting.
Okay.
Which is fine. It doesn't have to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Vin living in a house in the field at the end. I think it was a good ending. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's what I was I think I was expecting Ellen to be the democratic leader that he was trying to be, right? Like, I'm a little bit sad that storyline died out.
That he wasn't able to achieve that?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a few of those, that would have been a nice storyline. But again, Vin as the, first lady would not probably have worked, as she has said herself. So, some of the storylines died prematurely that I would have liked to have seen continue going in my eyes.
The moment one of them died, I knew that the ending had to be that they were both going to die.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because by the time that we got to book 3, it became very clear that they would not be able to operate without the other.
Yeah. One of the other interesting things about the ending specifically, too, is I think it quite interesting that Sazed changed all the landscape all in one go. So, I mean, I think those people coming out of those caverns will have a huge mental whiplash. Whoa. It was described quickly by Breeze and Spook and stuff oh my goodness, we came out and...
It was green.
Exactly. There's grass and a blue sky and everybody's right next to each other. I think a rebuilding story sometimes can be boring, but it would have been interesting to hear this rebuilding story. In doing a little bit of research, Era 2 doesn't start right away. We're not going to hear about Spook's reign. I guess potentially we could hear flashbacks or legends of it, but we're not going to directly hear about it in a story.
Yep.
I mean, actually, the book that I have you reading coming up, well, one of the things that it does get to is rebuilding. Not in the first book, in this second book, it's about rebuilding, which is kind of fun sometimes to hear, okay, your whole world got turned upside down in the first book. Let's hear now, how do you rebuild in the second book? Definitely a different kind of story. Anyway, I'm a little bit sad that it ended and we didn't get a lot there. Because again, that's another storyline I would have liked to have gotten picked up.
Well, I will say that in the next series, in Era 2, you get to find out not directly what happened. Not always. Sometimes, yes. But you get to find out a lot of the legends. The things that have been passed down hundreds of years in the future about who is a legend and what kind of stories are getting told 100 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I think those are all my niggles. I mean, again, they're not that much. They're not big. And like I said, the one thing that I can confirm is kind of convenient. Nothing hinges on it. It's fine. Had we not heard the term hemalurgy before this? I'm wondering if I had just read it on Coppermind first. See, probably shouldn't have spoiled myself a little bit.
I don't think we had necessarily heard that term before.
So I just read it on Coppermind earlier.
You had spoiled yourself, yeah.
Just on that term, again. We knew about it because of the Inquisitors, but we didn't know what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess I spoiled myself a little bit on that, but the big deal. Speaking of Inquisitors, let's move into some characters. One of the storylines that I think was disappointing was that I would have loved to have seen a redemption from Marsh. Especially after the death of Ruin. Actually, what happened to Marsh exactly? Did he die? No, Ellen didn't kill him because Marsh killed Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to Marsh?
He is still alive. He does make an appearance in the future, and that is a bit of a spoiler.
I mean, I know he didn't die because it didn't say he did.
Yeah.
I guess I would have liked to have seen, okay, let's just tie off that thread too. Can't we just know that, Ruin no longer controls him, so we've got the good old Marsh back, and, he's our friend again now.
Well, you'll see him in the next series.
I mean, I guess he's a little bit of an unknown because somebody could potentially be controlling him. I mean, another Allomancer could, right?
So, Sazed, who later basically known as Harmony.
Yes, I saw that, sorry. I spoiled myself on that one.
Yeah, that one's from other things, but yeah.
It's not a big spoil, I mean.
Yeah, not a big spoiler. He basically becomes Harmony because he is balancing preservation and ruin.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah, and so because Marsh was under Ruin's control, the person who he kind of answers to, if it's just based on the power, would be Harmony now. But because Harmony is Harmony, because Harmony is Sazed, if I recall correctly, he's basically just given a whole lot of freedom. So you'll see a bit of that, but like I said, Marsh is still alive. There's stuff that happens to Marsh in the future. And hey, maybe in book 4 of Wax and Wayne that totally has not been finished being written yet, maybe you will receive that final confirmation of the end of Marsh's arc.
Marsh being a good character, but let's move on to some of the characters from the other books. I do think it interesting that the crew was the big focus in the other books, especially the first one. The second one, a lot too. This one too, but not in the same way, right? Like, it's not everybody working together for the same goal. It's, small groups of the crew working together to achieve the ends that they've been assigned to. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. It's not the same feel, right? It's not the same, let's get 9 people together to solve the same goal. Now we've got 2 people and a very limited knowledge and a very limited amount of skills. How can we still get the same thing done? This book felt different in that way.
I think it's because the first book, The Final Empire, it reads more like a heist novel.
Right, it does. Mm-hmm.
And these books, they lean more into the epic fantasy kind of tropes and more into...
Well, the second one's definitely political maneuvering. This one is that too, but I think in some ways this one might still be more of a mystery novel. And I think this is why I was getting frustrated. There was not quite enough, or maybe not enough for me. Let me say it that way. Not enough hints for me to solve it on my own. Yes, there were a handful of things that I could figure out and that I shared with you along the way, but definitely not enough.
There wasn't enough signposting for the mist being the body, or that hemalurgy could do all these other things. And
right. And that spike in her ear was a hemalurgic spike.
For me, I remember that I figured out in my first reading before they revealed it.
Okay.
Because for me, I was thinking back on Reen whenever he appeared was whenever she was wearing the earring. And when Spook got stabbed and he had...
Kelsier's vision.
Yeah, he had this shard of a sword in his arm, and then the Kelsier vision said, no, don't take that shard out. And then, I think it was in book 1, she actually revealed how she got the earring in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where her baby sister was killed with the earring, and then her mom gave her the earring.
You see, I think I missed some of that. I mean, I remember hearing that her mom killed the baby and then gave her the earring, but...
Yeah, killed her with the earring that she gave her.
Yeah, I think I missed that part, which is important to pick up, but I missed it.
That's why, for me, at the very least, that being a hemalurgic spike was like, oh yeah, I figured that out far earlier, but that's not to say, like, for me, I did not catch on that she was going to just absorb the mists at the end. Like, that's something that I know I did not catch on.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things I was looking forward to also, in terms of character, I was telling you, I liked the character of Tensoon in the previous book. I mean, again, most of the time I did think it was Orsur, but I liked that whole
arc.
Yeah. And I think that it worked really well in this book too. Learning more about the Kandra, you were right, I will learn more. And I think one of the things I liked about it is because Vin is learning these things about Kandra, we are learning these things. And we did have a little bit of that moment with the Kolas human. Mm-hmm. And she would play off him, and she would learn things through him, and we would learn things through him. Mm-hmm. But, I was a little bit disappointed, again, with just the whole play that, Tensoon just never reached Vin, right? He got close again, and he was going the right direction, then he was going the wrong direction. And it's like, you never got there. You never got to see Vin again. Never really got to see her. Never really got to catch up to her. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, because I thought that...
At the very least, they had built up such a relationship that you're like, no, they need to at least be together at the end.
Yeah, fight together or whatever, right? But yeah, that didn't happen. I did think Tensoon had some great arcs in this story. I love the fact that he realized, the dog's bones, which everyone despises, is going to be my...
Take it out.
Yeah, because nobody else realizes how beneficial this is. So that's kind of cool. Back to some of the other core characters, I did think the buildup of Spook was interesting, right? I mean, it's not something I expected.
Yeah, especially because in a lot of the other books, he took a backseat to a lot of the other characters.
And I think this is another one of the storylines where I wish, okay, we heard more about this. I guess we might hear more about this in Legend later, but he was one who witnessed the first story and now is going to be prime in this new world and potentially the leader of this new world. But it would be interesting to see where that's going. Is it going to be a democratic government like Ellen tried to do, or it's just going to be another emperor or another leader like Kelsier by divvying things out? I don't know. How is he going to... Yeah, it's another storyline that's just not at all touched upon. But anyway, interesting.
That's the thing, is this book doesn't touch on what happens to the world after
And one thing too, like Sazed heals him of all his afflictions, of all his burns, and potentially does he heal him of his addiction to, what's it called when you burn it fast?
Oh, yeah, flaring his tin.
Full time, right? So is that addiction healed? Like, did he learn from this now that he's been healed of this addiction? Like, how does that work?
I will say that, yes, as part of this healing, he was healed of that addiction, yes.
So, but does he learn the lesson? Like, I mean, you don't have to answer that question, but still, like, does that lesson get learned? Like, being flash and waved your healing of your addiction, do you actually learn the lesson? Sometimes no, but anyway. I think one of the interesting things, too, about this book is the whole trying to convince you now that the Lord Ruler was a good guy. I think that's just another turn that I wasn't quite willing to make at the beginning of the book. Like, okay, you're trying to tell me the Lord... I guess it's not always telling you that the Lord Ruler is a good guy, but it's trying to explain how he was holding the world together.
I feel like it's not that he was a good guy, but that he was so determined to not let Ruin get his way, that he was willing to let the rest of the world burn for the fact of keeping Ruin trapped. That was his whole intention, was as long as life somewhat continues and I'm able to keep Ruin trapped, that's all I care about.
Right. And I guess it's too bad that he didn't think that anyone else would be able to help him out. I don't know. Of course, he's going to be single-minded and focused on it. And maybe Ruin was pushing him to think that no one would be able to help him out. But anyway.
One of the things is, like, he had to exert that kind of control over beings like the Steel Inquisitors, or Ruin would have taken over them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, I guess he was still under the assumption that he was the hero of ages. Isn't that true?
I don't know if he ever thought he was the hero of ages. I think he saw himself as... I touched this power. I know what this power is that is keeping this ruinous power at bay.
Mm.
I don't think he would have ever considered himself to be...
The hero of ages?
Hero of ages, yeah.
He killed the person who was suspected to be the hero of ages, I guess, too. So he doesn't think that he is because...
He thinks that the person who he killed should have been.
Right, so maybe he thinks that it's already been lost because the hero of ages is dead. Right, so he's just going to do enough to continue. He doesn't think that another hero of ages will rise.
Yeah, I will say, if you get really into the weeds of this, there is a lot that is going on in the background. Things that have been quasi-revealed, but not fully revealed in, like, the background history of what preservation and what ruin are.
That's not explained a lot.
That's not explained at all, because it's...
Why were they separated, right? What's the danger in putting them together? And is Sazed ever going to face that danger? Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting to see, too. Is that in another book?
Their origin and how all these powers are in existence is technically in a story that hasn't been written.
Oh, okay.
So there is a story that he has eventually planned if he can get to it, but it is tied to the prequel of all of his other books, basically.
I mean, I do think that this was a good book, and I think I enjoyed the mystery aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish I had picked up a few of the clues earlier, but again, not a problem. I enjoyed learning about them when I did. I mean, you had mentioned this to me that a lot of the questions would be answered, and a lot of my questions were answered. And yeah, I think I've gone over pretty much my lasting questions, which looking at them, aren't really critical. They're just more like, well, I wish I had heard a little bit more of that storyline, or I wish I heard a little bit of this storyline. So they're not like, well, why do the Khandra exist?
That was answered.
That was answered, right? And why do the Koloss exist? That was answered too. Like you had mentioned earlier, a lot of stuff was so tied together neatly, but then there was just a few things that were not tied together neatly. I think, and those few things were the things that kind of interested me. So that's why I might, have niggling feelings about them. But again, they were very rarely related to like actual plot. So no, the plot was all tied off. So that's really nice about it.
And here's the thing. At the end of the day, you're basically saying, man, I really wish this 700-page book was just a bit longer.
I know. I couldn't just make it a little longer. Just add another 100 pages. Not enough words. Can you just add some more words? Really?
Because, yeah, that's the thing is what you're saying is, hey, it's a great story. Hey, it's got this mystery that I felt was really great. And yeah, I wish there was more things that were revealed that would have given me a better feeling for it. And I wish that some of the character arcs for some of the side characters had been better wrapped up. But really what you're saying is, hey, that thing that you did Can you just have given me a little bit more of it?
Yeah, how about 2 more series after this? 1 more with 4 books and 1 more with 5 books, right? Is that what it is? Is that what it actually is? Wait, the other series hasn't been finished yet, right?
If you're talking about Mistborn specifically, in this world, there are 4 more full novels for Era 2.
And the Stormlight Archive is a completely different thing, huh?
It's a different world.
Oh, okay.
So it's all in the same Cosmere.
Right. Universe-ish thing.
Universe thing.
On the back of the turtle. Sorry, that's the other series.
No, that's a different series, but it's related in that same universe. So, for example, there is a couple of characters in the Stormlight Archives from various other books that he's written that show up. There is actually one character in this book who shows up in a lot of his other books. And it's a character who you most likely completely forgot about the moment that that chapter ended. There is a character named Hoid.
Hoid?
Hoid. I think it's called Hoid. I've never actually heard his name because I've always read the books for that one. Anyway, he appears in several other books, and the only place that he appears in this book, his name is not mentioned.
Oh, okay.
He is one of the informants that Vin could have met.
Yeah.
You know how Vin met with one informant and then was going to meet with a second one, but he gave her, like, bad feelings?
Mm-hmm.
That one who gave her bad feelings is Hoid. He appears in a lot of other books because he is a world hopper.
Okay.
So, surprise! There are things like that in the books, but they're very subtle usually. They get less subtle later in books because at that point, he does anticipate many people have read many of his books. But yeah, Era 2 is the other ones in this series, and then his other books are in other worlds, but in the same Cosmere. So the same general universe, same, like, The Emperor's Soul, the one that I had you read first, that one actually only has, I think, one other book that is on that planet so far.
The Elantris one?
Elantris is, well, technically there's also a short story.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elantris and Emperor's Soul both take place on the world of Cell. There's a lot of fun interconnecting things throughout all this stuff, but yay! Anyway, all this to say, that's what you're saying is like, hey, I like this book. I just want you to give me more of it.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me read it. Glad I could finish it.
I'm glad you could finish it too. I think, like I said, I'm really glad that you got a chance to read this because, quite honestly, I thought you would enjoy these books. I think that these books are excellent, and I thought that they'd be a good introduction into Brandon Sanderson and his style of writing. I'll have you read some more of his stuff later, but I might have you jump to a different author for a bit, just to mix things up, keep you guessing. So, Nate, I think next time you're having me watch another Star Trek episode, aren't you?
Yes, I think let's watch Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 2, Episode 16, entitled Q-Hue, which is a fun one. It is one that starts beginning some big things in Star Trek, combines a few things we've already seen with Q, but yet brings in a new big bad. So let's enjoy that. As
always, I've seen all of The Next Gen before, but I'm looking forward to revisiting this one and thinking about it all over again. We do hope that you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on, and we appreciate all of our listeners coming along. And hey, if you ever thought to yourself, I really like these guys and what they do, and wish A, I could support them, and B, maybe I could hear a little bit more from them, know that you can. You can visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. But to give you a kind of a quick summary, starting with the new year, we'll be releasing some members-only podcasts that will be hills that we're not quite willing to die on. Hills that maybe there's somebody else's hill to die on, but hills that we have strong feelings about nonetheless. So we will be releasing those as members-only podcasts, and for the main podcast, we will have members' choice topics every few episodes. We will be listening to topics that you guys have chosen for us and talk about those things, the hills that you guys are willing to die on, and our own opinions about them. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion with us can continue through Reddit at the subreddit My Hill to Die On, or by contacting us through Twitter at My Hill to Die On, or you can reach us by email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is also named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On.
I like the idea of stuff that's just not quite favorite, stuff that's bugging me in some way. Like, it could have been favorite if this.
It missed the mark in this big way or something.
As opposed to something we're tearing down. I mean, again, the tearing down one here and there might be kind of fun sometimes. Because again, I think there was a few things that I could have put on my list of favorites here, because I'm looking at the show notes, my list of favorites that... Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm going to do the book that I read recently that I couldn't quite recommend to you, right? Like, it's good. I like it. But there are other books to read. So, anyway.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because you don't want us to have this turn into let me tell you about something that I just loathe.
Well, one or two of those might be funny.
Yeah.
If we can pull it off well. But sometimes I feel like I loathe things because I don't know enough about it. And if somebody taught me about it, then I wouldn't loathe it as much. You know, those kinds of things. Like, if somebody just taught me, yeah. Anyway, does that make sense? I don't know, too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why I cut out a lot of our criticisms, because, you know what? It's good for somebody.
Yeah, I think that's something I'll try to aim for that, too, where it's like, I guess the best way I can describe it is it gets me riled up because it's so close to greatness.
Because that's what this book is to me. It's like you had something there and you squandered it. On the one time in episode 49 that I was editing where I let the word slip, I just edited around it. I just took it out. So it just sounds like I left out a pronoun or something, because I was like, I don't want to put a honk in, because then it sounds like
you're swearing.
When I just said the name of the software, so I just edited around it so that it sounds like I made a mistake instead of saying the actual word. Anyway.
Yeah. And that way you don't turn the software that you're making into a 4-letter word.
Exactly.
Well, you know, I have a 2-piece edit, then I have a 10-track edit, and then I have another 2-piece edit.
I only give you the easy ones.
What hath you done? I feel like you are insisting on bringing ruin into my very life. We do hope that you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on. And
you mean this hill of Kolos that we were willing to die on? It's all because I could see the future, Ryan. That's why I could die on this hill. I was burning ATM. I knew how this podcast was going to end. Right now.